Welcome to this explainer. When we think of a typical inheritance, we usually picture a bank account, right? Maybe a house or even a slightly rusty vintage car. But today, we're unpacking a really powerful parable about a farmer's son who inherits a very unconventional fortune. We're talking about three treasure chests containing zero gold, zero silver, but something infinitely more valuable for navigating life's extreme hardships. So, what is the absolute most valuable thing a parent can leave behind? It's a profound thought, isn't it? In our story, we meet this old, exceptionally wise farmer. He has absolutely no money to his name, but he possesses vast life experience. As his final days arrive, he confronts this exact question and calls his only son to his bedside. And here's what he tells him. My son, I have no fortune to leave behind for you, but in the inner room, there are three locked treasure chests. But there was a very specific catch to this inheritance. The farmer's dying instruction was that his son could only open these chests whenever he faced an overwhelming, insurmountable crisis in life. And even then, he had to do it sequentially, like open the first, and if the problem remains unresolved later in life, open the second, and only as an absolute last resort, open the third. He was essentially leaving behind a series of hidden messages, perfectly timed philosophical guidance, meant for his son's future struggles. Take a look at this timeline. The son's life is about to be tested by three distinct, escalating hardships. Following his father's passing, he's going to face a crushing first crisis involving severe debt. Then, a second crisis involving a bitter betrayal. And finally, a third crisis centered around a massive investment decision. These challenges won't just stop. They're going to evolve as he grows. This brings us to Crisis 1, enduring financial ruin. So, sometime after the old farmer passes away, reality hits the young man really hard. His savings completely run out, his business suffers heavy losses, and he falls deeply, deeply into debt. Pushed entirely by despair and seeing literally no way out of this suffocating financial hole, he remembers his father's final words. With nothing left to lose, he unlocks the very first chest. Inside? Well, there's no money to bail him out. Instead, he finds a single note that says, "Your current hardship is not permanent. Be patient, time will change." This first piece of philosophical guidance focuses entirely on patience during financial struggles. It teaches him that while the storm might feel totally endless, hard times are strictly temporary. And you know what? He doesn't just passively wait around. He makes the active choice to prioritize patience over despair. By regulating his emotions and staying perfectly calm, he's able to put his head down and just grind through the discomfort. And eventually, his business gradually recovers, and every single debt is paid off. He literally works his way out of the hole, fueled entirely by his father's perspective. Moving on to Crisis 2, overcoming bitter betrayal. Years pass by, and a wealthy partner joins his now successful business, only to completely betray him and deceitfully steal all of his properties. In an instant, the son is ruined all over again, but this time, it's a deliberate, deeply personal attack. Consumed by rage, will he give in to the urge for revenge? Pushed to the absolute brink of violence, he realizes he's facing his second overwhelming crisis, and so he unlocks the second chest. He pulls out a note reading, "Never make a decision in anger. Seeking revenge will ruin your future. Learn to forgive and move forward." This second note from his father is an absolute masterclass in the power of emotional intelligence. It explicitly warns against the devastating, permanent damage that comes from acting on vengeful impulses. The father knew that anger might feel totally justified in the moment, but it is a trap that destroys the person holding onto it. He is faced with a critical fork in the road here. One path leads to acting in anger and violence, assuring a cycle of total destruction. The other path, however, requires immense restraint, choosing forgiveness and legal recourse. The son manages to control his rage, chooses the legal route, and, incredibly, he channels all that intense energy into rebuilding a brand new business completely from scratch. And that leads us to Crisis 3, seeking experienced counsel. At this point, the son is older and highly successful, but he faces a massive business decision between two major investments. A single mistake here could destroy his entire lifetime of hard work. Deeply confused and feeling the weight of the world crushing him, he realizes he has totally exhausted his own knowledge. So, as an absolute last resort, he unlocks the third and final chest. The note inside simply states, "You cannot know everything yourself. Always seek advice from those who are experienced and sincere." This final piece of guidance encourages the young man to deeply value the wisdom of elders.
True intelligence isn't about having all the answers, right? It's knowing exactly when to check your ego at the door and ask for help from those who have actually walked the path before you.
And he acts on this immediately. Gathering the village elders, he actively consults with the most experienced businessmen to find that sincere advice his father mentioned. Rather than acting in isolation, he makes a guided decision. Because he leaned on experienced counsel, he makes the absolute right choice and achieves unprecedented success. He didn't just survive this third crisis, he completely thrived. Which brings us to our final section, the true meaning of wealth. Looking back, this entire story serves as a stunning allegory. The ultimate survival toolkit wasn't gold or silver, but inherited wisdom. Let's look at this breakdown. First, it taught patience, knowing that storms pass with persistent effort. Second, emotional control, realizing that decisions made in anger lead to permanent regret. And finally, the power of consultation, understanding that sound advice protects us from incredibly costly mistakes. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Who are the elders in your life, and are you actually listening to them? We're all going to face debt, betrayal, or deeply confusing decisions at some point. I encourage you to reflect on how you might apply this timeless philosophical guidance to your own challenges. And perhaps start looking for the treasure chests of wisdom already sitting right there in your own life.